Can you start by telling us your name and your rank in Trinity House?
My name is David Spurgeon. I'm assistant keeper.
Right, when did you join and how many years have you done so far?
March 1968. 29 years.
And still going strong.
Well, going.
Right. When you joined, where did you do your training?
Harwich.
And what did it sort of consist of down there?
Oh, Morse, semaphore, learning to bake bread, working IOVs, how to wash windows. You know, all the basic things of lighthouse keeping.
What was that thing about you saying being opposite Ganges to you have to do?
Oh yeah, the depot at Harwich is opposite HMS Ganges, and in those days Ganges was still operational, and every morning we used to have to go out and with a telescope read what the flags were they were flying. They flew different flags every day, and that was part and parcel of your training.
Now your first lighthouses were as a supernumerary.
Yep.
So how many years did you do as a supernumerary?
Only about 18 months. My first station was Lizard, where I went to get my engine ticket, I think it was. I was there for a month or so, then I went to Start Point, and that would have been for the beacon ticket. And then it was, just relief duties all round the Penzance district, West Coast.
So what sort of lighthouses have you been on as, appointed?
Well, my first station was Bishop Rock, then I went to Whitby, then Sark, Hanwar, the Lizard, back to Bishop Rock, then the Lizard again, round Ireland, and the last few years at Lizard.
So you come full cycle.
Yes, back to where I started.
Can you tell us about the Bishop Rock, the sort of year you were there and what it was like?
Well, yes. I mean, what in particular do you want to know? You've done the Bishop Rock, so you know exactly what it was like. I suppose the only difference being that when I was there, it was still IOVs, and the only lighting on the place came from 24-volt batteries, which the keepers had stuck in over the years. A little bit of wire and a 12-volt bulb from here and there. It's all sort of temporary type stuff, and used to charge the batteries every 3 days. That sort of thing.
And what was the period of time you were out there then?
Oh, that was 56 days on duty and 28 days off. A little bit different to today where it's 28 on and 28 off.
And you went out by boat?
By boat, yes.
Can you describe a boat relief and how you rig for?
Yeah, I can describe it, but it's going to be a little bit difficult without the actual gear there. Well, it was done actually what they called the jack roll. It was just a rope on basically a jack roll, and it was, you let a rope down from the top of the tower on the winch, let this winch rope down, and then you pulled the jack roll rope up to the top of the tower, through a block and back down again, and that was what the keeper was tied into when he was going up and down. I say tied into, there was a little harness that clipped down onto you, but in those days most keepers just used to have a bowline in the bottom of the rope and put the foot in the jack roll rope and their leg over the back line that ran into the boat and hold on and go down like that. That way that if it was a little bit rough, if you got a few feet above the boat and it was clear, you could just let go and drop into the boat, which was a quite common thing done.
So was the winching done by motor or by hand?
Oh no, by hand, just straight pull. There was no gearing or anything, or even a ratchet on the jack roll in those days. You just brute strength, one at each end, and you wound it as fast as you could to get the chap clear of the boat, and then you could ease up and and winch away with him. Also, there was a back line that ran to the boat from the actual jack roll rope, and the idea of that was that they would hold you off from banging into the side of the tower until you got above the set off, and then there'd be a rope that the third keeper on the tower would have, which he would pull you into the set off so you could just step out. On one occasion, the superintendent's visit, and it was Captain Carstens was coming aboard, and it was Freddie Rosewall and I were on the jack roll, and we got his chin level with the set off, and they fouled the rope in the launch, so we could neither pull him up nor let him down, and he was stuck there for about 5 minutes, and his face was going paler and paler all the time till they managed to untangle the rope and we could carry on and winch him up.
Was he convinced it was an accident?
Well, I don't know. It was debatable. We were saying to him, well, we can't winch, we can't pull you because we're trying to lift the boat out of the water as well. So whether he had words when he got back on board, we never knew.
What was this one you were saying about some chap coming out and trying to walk on water?
Oh yes, that was a mechanical draftsman from Tower Hill, London. He came out. They were going to do some alterations on the lighthouse, and the normal thing, as I said, you'd roll the winch as fast as you could to take up the slack and get them clear of the boat. Well, this chap coming from London, from the house of draftsman, never been in this situation before, so he's there sitting on the bow of the boat, which was a normal place that you would winch up from, being obviously the highest part. Well, instead of him letting us, him just staying there and letting us winch him up, he decided he'd run along the gunnel, which he did. He went along the gunnel. We were winching as fast as we could, but we couldn't winch as fast as he could sort of run. And he got to the stern of the boat and kept going. Unfortunately, he didn't float on the water, and down he went. But we got him up, we winched him up. Once he stopped running, it was easy. We could lift him up. It's one of the hazards of boat reliefs in the early days.
Did you have many hairy boat reliefs with rough weather at all?
Oh yes, several of rough weather, but nothing, nothing that was really out of the ordinary. I remember one occasion, again with Freddie Rose, we were going back, and it was round about the Christmas time, a day or so after Christmas. It might have been the day after Boxing Day, something like that, but it was the Christmas time. The boatman took us out, and we get to the lighthouse, and not a sign of life there at all. Not a sign. He, give a trip round the lighthouse and shouted, and nothing. And it was unusual for the time of year. It was flat calm and low water. We stepped ashore, went up the tower, and the other three keepers the two keepers who were due to come ashore were sitting up there playing cards. So we gave them a hand to rig the gear and sent them ashore and winched our own bags up. Tommy Williams was the PK at the time out there, but he's long gone, unfortunately.
Didn't they want to come ashore on?
I don't think so. If it had been a rough day, we would have gone back. We'd shouted and couldn't make anybody hear. And Hicksy the boatman was all prepared to turn around and go ashore. It's just that it was calm enough that we could try jumping ashore, and we did, and neither of us got wet.
Right, the inside of a tower, like the Bishop, when you did in the days of 2 months on, what was that like, conditions wise? Well,
really no different to what they are today, except that we had solid fuel Rayburns on the stations, when then they changed over to oil-fired ones. But the bunks and everything and the rest of it was exactly the same. Obviously there were no deep freezers or anything like that. Had old paraffin fridges that were very efficient. If you looked after them, you could get those to keep stuff frozen for the month, provided you treated them right and smiled at them now and again.
Food for 2 months, how do you manage to, cater and
Well-
stuff keep fresh, for instance?
Well, you couldn't, you'd use a lot of tin stuffed or dried stuff, and potatoes would keep for a month, and so would turnips and carrots. If you kept them cool and well ventilated, potatoes would last for the month with no trouble. But most of it was, the vegetable side was frozen. Not frozen, dried vegetables or tinned. Meat wise, it tended to be tinned meat, that sort of thing.
Did anybody ever try and grow anything on a tower rock? Like take a grow bag out or anything?
No, not when I was there. Not on Bishop. There was no room to do it. The lantern, which was the only place you could have had a grow bag, was so bloody cramped for space that there just wasn't room for one. But no one took grow bags.
Right, 2 months on and 1 month off. Begs the question really of 2 months of up and down, nothing but steps and hardly in a straight line. What was it like coming ashore?
No different. It wasn't the slightest difference to me. You came ashore and you were ashore, and that was all.
Yeah.
I suppose you could say the boat trip got you reorientated, but no, it didn't bother me that I can ever recall.
And what did they do on their time off, over a 2 month period on a light out to sea?
It was taken up. There wasn't all that much time that you had anything, real spare time that you could say. I mean, going back, the Bishop was IOVs, so you had quite a lot of work, keeping that clean and in working order, pumping up paraffin and all that sort of thing. One morning you'd cook. There was also an explosive fog signal, so it meant that somebody actually had to sit up there and fire these bloody charges off every 5 minutes when there was fog. I don't know, we used to play cards, read quite a bit, a bit of rug making, but no, there's television. But yeah, time used to go pretty quick. During period, there was much more lighthouse keeping to do than what there is today.
Was there more camaraderie with the keepers then, you reckon?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that sort of changed terribly. It has, in a way, now when everybody's on, where it's all land stations, everybody wants their own house and don't want to share anything. Now, I think that's pretty much general in all walks of life now.
Right, after Tower Rocks, you're on about Whitby. What was it like at Whitby?
Bloody cold. Yeah, it was a funny, strange, but then that was another busy little station, although it was small. That was IOVs again, and there was, as you put it, so much more work looking after an IOB than there is flicking a switch and the electricity board doing it for you. You had to clean your vaporizer and tube every day and what have you, cart paraffin. There was just that much more to do on an IOB station than the present electric light stations.
So can you run through roughly the lighting up procedures on an IOV?
Oh, blimey, you want me to go back 20 odd years. Yeah, you had what they call a mess tray. It was a little brass saucer type thing, really, that you put the methylated spirits in, and it was all, you had a little glass measuring jug, and depending what sort of IOB, if it was a 35mm, a 50mm or 100mm, how much meth you put in to heat it up, and you put the right amount of meth in, put it underneath and heated it up, and then when it was what you thought hot enough, or just about to use all the meths had gone, you open up your micrometer valve which let the paraffin into the vaporizer, and you get a nice cloud of vaporized paraffin at the top, and light it and away you went. Just like a blow lamp, really, same principle as a blow lamp, an IOB, except that when the flame came up, it went into a mantle.
Were they reliable?
Yeah, very reliable, very reliable.
And how often did you have to pump up the air?
At the end of every watch, and it used to work on about £60, if my memory serves me right, something like that, 50, £60, that sort of figure.
So that pressure was enough to last something like 8 hours?
Yeah, well, it was a big air tank, big air receiver, and a small paraffin tank. The paraffin on an IOB in the actual tank would probably last 2 or 3 nights. Now I can't honestly remember exactly what it is. Was it there's 2 nights or 3? But something of that order. And then obviously it depended if it was a 35mm or 100mm or what, how many nights you get out of it. Bishop was a little bit of it. They had 2 there on a biform lens, and it was one hood burner above the other at the 2 levels where they put the electric light bulbs, and you had both of those were going all the time.
So back to Whitby, if it was IOB, I take it was clockwork wind-up.
Oh yes, that was a wind-up one. Well, both Bishop and Whitby were clock winds.
So I assume Whitby was a lot shorter wind than...
Oh yes, and that was an occulting light anyway, Whitby, so it was... You didn't have to wind that one quite so often as the Bishop. Bishop, I think, was something like a 55-minute wind. Every 55 minutes you had to wind it up.
So the Bishop one actually, you wound up and it rotated the lens.
That's it, yeah.
The Whitby
was an occulting light, where it just activated a little hood that came down over the mantle to cut the light out.
Oh. And what was the foghorn light down at Whitby then?
A pig. It was compressed air one, if my memory serves me right, and it was 4 blasts. I think it was every minute. So there was very little time when it wasn't sounding, and one of the keeper's cottages, not the one I was living in, one of the keeper's cottages was right next to the engine room, and when you started the compressor up down there, it used to shake this dwelling terribly. It was right next door to it. And they had also at Whitby, up in the little fog signal trap where the sirens were, they had heaters on all the time in the winter to stop the sirens freezing.
And the siren's similar to the one at the Lizard.
That's it, yeah, similar type.
Sark you went to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a totally
different totally different kettle of fish, Sark. That was all electric. Got their power from the mains, had an electric fog signal that was an American type. It was the only one in the service at the time when I was there. Quite a dinky little thing, you didn't really notice it compared to Whitby. The lens clock was still in at Sark when I was there, but it was electric motor to drive. We didn't have to wind up or anything. It wasn't even on electric rewind. It was just. But the lens clock was still there, and we still had to polish the damn thing every week. But so it was all on the mains there. Doddle of a station, really.
It was Sark's attached to a nice big island. At least you could get out and stretch your legs.
Oh yeah, you could go up the island and stretch your legs, but I don't suppose I went up all that much. I worked on the thought that you're away from home to earn your money. What was the point of going up the island and spending it all and have nothing left when you go ashore? It's
plus all those steps.
all the steps to go up and down.
So which station did you prefer the most? If that's the right word to use.
I don't know. There's good and bad about all the stations. A lot depends who you're with. Can make a bad, what you would term a bad station into quite a good station. I mean, Bishop wasn't the ideal place to be, but I had some good fun there. I was there with Freddie Rosewall, Tommy Williams, Simon Reynolds, Jimmy Loss, and we had some good fun there. The time went by, we used to fish and Sark, well, different sort of place, but still a nice station to be on, Hanwar, another rock, but I had good fun there. I was there with Norman Wackley and Brian Horner. It was a good station for collecting crabs and lobsters and fishing, and a bit of rock to walk around on. It's very difficult to say what's a good station and what's a bad station. I suppose at the end of the day, it is really the people you're on there with, if it's a good place to be.
Sark again. How on earth did you store up there with... So I can understand on the tower rock stuff comes on up the wire saying you all load it on, but the harbour's quite a way away from...
Oh yeah, well they used to have the local carrier. It was a chap called... John, I can't remember his surname. Anyway, the tractor driver was John. He had the contract to do all the work for Trinity, and he would bring you up on the tractor and trailer with all your, whatever provisions you'd fetched across. Sark was an expensive place to buy your provisions. So most of us, when I was there, used to bring our stores over from Guernsey. Little shop. They used to pack them all up, take them down to the harbour for you, and you then used to have to carry them from the top of the island, all down all the steps to the lighthouse. But then it was no worse than some other stations that you can get.
So on relief day, there's quite a few trips up and down those stairs, I think.
Oh, we have a few strips, not too many. You tended to carry as much down at a time as you could.
Wait, you mentioned the Hanwar. How did that differ from, say, somewhere like the Bishop?
Oh, it was a lot smaller tower. It was a squatter tower, where the Bishop had a sitting room, as it was called, where you could, where the television used to be when I was on the Bishop. But the Hanwar didn't. It just had a kitchen and a bedroom was the only living quarters on the station. So you were always confined, so to speak, with somebody else. But then, as I say, it does come back to who you were with, whether you minded it or not. So I was there with two good people, Norman Wackley and Brian Horner, and we had a really good time.
I suppose compared to the Bishop, on Hanwar you could actually get out.
Oh yes, you could get out. Most of the time on Hanwar, except at high water when the rocks were covered. But then, say Bishop, a fair amount of the time you could get out there on the set-off, and I used to fish from the set-off a lot, and you spend quite a lot of time down there. And of course when helicopters came and they put helipads on, well then you could go up on the top and sunbathe, and I've known some of the keen fanatics to jog around the helipad sort of 200 or 300 times, but that was never me.
The Hanwar, that wasn't a winch relief, was it?
Oh no, it was helicopter relief. Helicopter used to land on a pad that they'd made in the rocks.
But before that, would it have been...
Oh no, it was never a winch relief, it was just a step-off. They had a little, what they called a set-off there with steps, and the boat would come in alongside and you'd jump out of the boat onto the steps and up you go. But then the tower was not much above sea level anyway. Even at high water, it was not much more than probably 20 feet above sea level by high water mark.
And the bunk beds and stuff like that, what's the comparison with the Bishop and the Hanwar?
Well, yeah, there's a tremendous difference. Bishop, they were curved bunks, you followed the curve of the wall, and they were big on the Bishop. I think they had the biggest bunks in the service, near enough. Or maybe the Eddystone was the same, because they were sort of identical. They curved, your mattresses were shaped to follow the curve. It was a pain in the backside making your bed with square sheets or oblong sheets and blankets, but a little bit of practice you could do it. Hanwar had been gutted during the war, and they'd just got metal bunk beds in there, straight, so there's no difference to being in a single bed somewhere else. But obviously, the oblong beds didn't fit very well against a curved wall, so there was a lot of space was wasted there.
And the differences between Bishop's lens and the Hanwell lens?
Well, the Bishop was a biform, probably the biggest. Well, at that time it was the biggest in the service. There wasn't any other biforms that size in the Bishop. And the Hanwell was a modern, for that sort of day I'm talking about, 1975-ish, was just a small little electric revolving lens. It did a little thing, where you could clean that one in a half an hour. The Bishop, 2 of you would be most of a morning cleaning.
Right, you eventually came full circle to
Lizard, yeah.
Can you describe the Lizard Lighthouse?
Well, Lizard Lighthouse is a very big place, massive. Got a big engine room with 4 Gardner engines in it, 3 for the fog signal and 1 for the mains standby in case of mains failure, a little lister for the essential services mains failure, and a couple of old museum pieces, because at one time they were going to turn the engine room into a sort of a museum thing. A little short tower with a medium-sized lens in that's electrically driven by 2 little motors that were designed and built in Blackwall in 1969. They then, up until 1969, it had a lens clock in that was on an electric rewind, and then that had been in since the lighthouse was built. Well, not the lighthouse was built, but since this lens was put in as a revolving lens, the lens clock had been in. It changed to electric rewind and was then discontinued in 69.
And the foghorn on the Lizard?
Oh, a diaphone, nice mellow sounding thing, 2 blasts every minute. Rattles the windows of the neighbours, but you can live with it.
And this is going to be your last station?
It might be. I've not decided what I'm going to do yet, but I shall take redundancy when this station is automated next year. If I don't, North Foreland will be my last station.
Okay, so how long have you got left to go now?
A minimum of 6 months and a maximum of 11. If the automation stays on course, I'll either go March of next year when Lizard is automated, or October of 98 when, it's another 12 months, beg your pardon, not 11. 12 months when North Foreland's automated.
So we're down to what? How many keepers now, roughly?
At this moment in time, 30, and that's including those amongst us who are going out very shortly.
And how many roughly were in when you joined?
Oh God, must have been 300 plus. Must have been. I can't remember. It was up that sort of number. 250, 300 had to be.
So most of the characters have gone.
I don't know. What do you mean by characters?
All the nice souls from.
But then you get that with every generation, don't you? Characters are not confined to one generation, really, are they? You could well become a character yourself in 20 years' time. It's just how people look upon your reminiscences and things like that. Oh, he's a bit of a character. But no, there's still some characters in the job now that are, quite amusing. But I don't think it's fair to mention names.
And before we sort of end this, going back to your 2 months on, 1 month off, what was it like coming ashore? Being with just 3 people and suddenly being in the big bad world, as it were. Did you notice any difference?
Only there's a few more people to talk to. But no, not really. No different, really. It's no different than a month or 2 months. I think either you've got the adaptability to carry on where you left off when you came ashore, or when you went on board, you come ashore and just carry on as if you hadn't been away. No little point is going away on a holiday. bit of a rest. But yeah, it just depends how adaptable you are. I mean, I suppose yourself, you must be able to go home and virtually pick up conversations that you left off when you came away from home last.
What possessed you to become a lighthouse keeper in the first place?
Saw the job advertised. I'd been at sea before that, and it's like being at sea and being at home, you know. Give it a try, and stuck it ever since. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, it's been a interesting sort of 30 years. Yeah, it's good times, it's bad times, like any job. You know, you're left much to your own devices. You know, you haven't got anybody breathing down your neck well, most stations you haven't got anybody breathing down your neck all the time.
Thanks very much.
That's okay, Mr. Halil.